Hey everyone, you know across the world, huge seas of sand shape some of the most extraordinary landscapes? These colossal dunes rise hundreds of meters up into the sky, formed over millions of years by wind and time. Here are 15 of the biggest sand dunes in the world. Number 15. Dune number 7, Namibia. Located just outside a small coastal town in Namibia, is widely recognized as one of the tallest sand dunes in the Namib Desert. It's part of what's known as the Namib Sand Sea. This is a huge area of shifting dunes that stretch along the country's Atlantic coastline. The name Dune 7 refers to its position as the seventh dune one encounters when crossing the Schaub River when traveling inland from Walvis Bay. Measurements of Dune 7's height vary slightly due to the natural shifting of sand caused by the wind, but it generally rises to about 380 meters or over 1,200 feet above sea level, making it the highest dune in the Namib. Unlike some dunes in more remote areas of the desert, Dune 7 is relatively easy to reach. It's located about 10 kilometers east of Walvis Bay and connected by road. Now, geologically, it is part of the vast Erg system, where prevailing winds from the Atlantic continuously sculpt and reshape these dunes. The sand here is known for its rich reddish-orange color, a result of high iron oxide content that's oxidized over millions of years. This distinct coloration is especially pronounced during the sunrise and sunset when the low angle of the sun intensifies the colors. But the dune's height and steep slope make it a popular site for sandboarding, hiking, and quad biking. Climbing to the summit is physically demanding. The loose sand will shift underfoot, and the ascent can take about 20 to 30 minutes, despite the relatively short distance. But once you're up there, panoramic views from the top are amazing. The Atlantic Ocean lies to the west and endless desert dunes stretch to the east. The Namib Desert is one of the driest places on the planet. It receives less than 20 millimeters of rainfall every year. Moisture comes mainly from coastal fog that drifts inland from the cold Benguela Current, sustaining unique desert-adapted plants and animals. Tourism at Dune 7 is carefully managed to minimize any environmental impact. The dune's popularity means that foot traffic can accelerate erosion of the surface layer, though constant wind action replenishes and reshapes it over time. Efforts to protect the broader Namib Sand Sea have been formalized through designation as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2013, which is ensuring long-term conservation of this unique ecosystem. Number 14. Star Dune, Colorado. The Star Dune. It's the tallest dune in the Great Sands Dune National Park and Preserve. That's located in southern Colorado in the United States. It stands about 230 meters or about 750 feet from its base to summit, and it's among the tallest sand dunes in North America. That distinctive star shape from which it takes its name was formed by wind patterns that converge from multiple directions, creating this peak with several radiating arms. The Great Sand Dunes themselves are a unique feature within the Rocky Mountains, and they cover roughly 78 square kilometers at the edge of the San Luis Valley. This high-altitude desert, formed over thousands of years through interaction of wind, water, and sediment, the sand originates primarily from the erosion of the nearby Sangre de Cristo Mountains, and it's carried by prevailing southwest winds towards the valley floor. Star Dune is located near the northern edge of the main dune field, and it's notable for its difficulty to access. Some other dunes in the park are visible and reachable from parking areas. The Star Dune requires several-hour hike across the dune field to reach it. So the dune shape results from the complex wind dynamics, but unlike linear dunes formed by winds from a single dominant direction, these star dunes develop where winds blow in from multiple directions throughout the year. In the valley here, seasonal wind shifts between southerly and westerly flows and contribute to this formation, and over the centuries, the sand accumulates into a high central peak with ridges radiating outward. The dune field lies adjacent to alpine tundra, grasslands, and wetlands, which creates some interesting contrasts within a short distance. Species like kangaroo rats, prairie lizards, and tiger beetles are all adapted to the extreme temperature swings. Plant life, too, is limited on the dunes themselves, but abundant in the surrounding grassland and creek beds. The Great Sand Dunes National Park and Preserve protects both the dune field and the surrounding watersheds, which are essential to its stability. Without the seasonal streams that transport and recycle sand, the dunes would erode over time. Now, the park was first designated a national monument in 1932 and later expanded to a national park and preserve in 2004, which I hope will ensure broader protection of this unique landscape. Number 13. The Barchan Dunes in Uzbekistan. The Kalahari Desert. It's situated east of the shrinking Aral Sea in Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. It's home to extensive fields of Barchan dunes, crescent-shaped dunes formed by unidirectional wind. These dunes, though modest in height compared to giants like Cerro Blanco or Badain Jaran, are significant for their scale and clarity, and they provide textbook examples of Barchan formation and migration across landscapes like this. These Barchan dunes in this region typically range from 2 to 30 meters high, and they can stretch for hundreds of meters. The crescent forms a gentle windward slope and a steep leeward face, with the horns of the crescent pointing downwind. Now, the shape results from a consistent prevailing wind blowing from the northeast across the flat desert plains. As the wind continues to push sand over the crest, the Barchans slowly migrate downwind, advancing several to tens of meters per year depending on the wind strength and sand supply. Now, the desert here itself is a relatively young landscape. It's formed largely in the wake of the Aral Sea's dramatic retreating during the 20th century. As the sea shrank due to diversion of its feeder rivers for irrigation projects, huge areas of the former lake bed were exposed. Winds quickly reworked these sediments into dune fields, transforming what was once a seabed into a new desert terrain. The resulting landscape, known as the Arakum, is one of the world's most prominent examples of rapid desertification caused by human activity. Barchan dunes in this region are valuable for scientific study. Their movement rates and shapes provide insights into wind patterns and sediment availability. They are also important for understanding the ecological impacts of the Aral Sea disaster, including the spread of salt and dust storms that affect agriculture and human health. Vegetation around this area is pretty sparse, consisting mainly of salt-tolerant shrubs and ephemeral grasses. And despite these conditions, though, wildlife such as saiga antelope and various rodents persist in nearby areas. Culturally, the dunes are a reminder of environmental change. The disappearance of the Aral Sea, once one of the largest inland bodies of water in the world, devastated local fishing communities and transformed livelihoods. The newly formed desert, with its migrating barchans, symbolize both ecological loss and the adaptability of human and natural systems. Number 12. Cerro Blanco, Peru. Cerro Blanco, located in southern Peru's Nazca Desert, is the tallest sand dune in the world. It rises about 1,176 meters, that's over 3,800 feet above sea level, and approximately 824 meters or 2,700 feet from the base to the crest. Its name, meaning the White Hill, derives from the dune's light-colored sand. It is both a striking natural feature and a site of cultural significance. Unlike many dunes that form in low-lying basins, Cerro Blanco sits on the western slopes of the Andes, overlooking the arid Nazca Plain. This unique position gives it an impressive vertical relief and panoramic view extending to the Pacific. The sand originates primarily from riverbeds in the Nazca Valley, where the eroded material from the Andes is carried downstream and then redistributed by wind. But the climb to the summit is known for the difficulty due to both the altitude and the terrain. Reaching the base requires a trek of several kilometers from the city of Nazca, followed by a steep ascent up loose sand that shifts underfoot. Hikers typically begin the climb in the early morning to avoid any extreme midday heat, and despite the challenge, the reward is extraordinary. Sweeping views of the Nazca, famous for its giant geoglyphs known as the Nazca Lines, are visible from the summit. Cerro Blanco, too, is also a popular destination for sandboarding, attracting adventure travelers seeking one of the longest downhill rides on sand in the world. The descent from the summit to the base can span several kilometers, offering a unique experience unmatched by most dunes. The Nazca civilization, which flourished between 100 BCE and 800 CE, created the famous Nazca Lines. Those are the enormous geoglyphs depicting animals, plants, and geometric shapes. While Cerro Blanco itself was not a site of geoglyphs, its prominence on the landscape would have made it a notable landmark for ancient peoples. Preservation of the dune and surrounding desert is a concern due to increasing tourism and recreational activities. Although Cerro Blanco lies outside the immediate geoglyph zone, it does contribute to the broader landscape and cultural environmental value here. Number 11. The Badain Jaran Dunes in China. The Badain Jaran Desert, located in the Axla League of Inner Mongolia, China, is home to some of the tallest stationary dunes in the world. Within this desert, individual dunes can reach heights of up to 500 meters, that's over 1,600 feet, towering over the surrounding landscape and ranking among the highest on the Earth. The region spans about 49,000 square kilometers, and it features a unique combination of towering dunes, permanent lakes, and desert oases. That's an unusual coexistence that sets it apart from most other fields worldwide. The name Badain Jaran translates to mysterious lakes in Mongolian, referring to the numerous freshwater lakes nestled between the dunes. These lakes, sustained by underground aquifers, are fed by distant mountain runoff. They provide rare pockets of life in an otherwise hyper-arid environment. Their presence influences local microclimates and supports vegetation and wildlife, including migratory birds and hardy desert plants. The dunes of Badain Jaran are primarily of the compound and star types, formed by complex wind patterns that converge. The tallest of the dunes in the desert are classified as stationary or singing dunes. That's a phenomenon caused by the movement of dry sand grains generating low-frequency sounds when sliding down steep slopes. These sounds, described as humming or booming, can be heard for kilometers and have contributed to the desert's reputation. Strong prevailing winds combined with the desert's conditions and lack of vegetation allow the dunes to grow to extraordinary heights. Unlike some dune systems that migrate rapidly, these dunes are largely fixed in place due to the moisture trapped beneath the surface and the vegetation around the lakes acting like natural stabilizers. Of course, access to the desert here is pretty challenging due to its location and environment. Visitors typically reach the area through small towns like Badain Jaran or Axla Right Banner, followed by off-road travel using specialized vehicles or camel caravans. Tourism has grown in recent years, particularly among travelers looking to explore the desert's hidden lakes, scale the massive dunes, or experience the acoustic phenomena. But despite its increasing visitation, the desert remains sparsely populated. Preservation efforts aim to balance tourism with protection of this fragile system, which are highly sensitive to overuse and disturbance. Number 10. Erg Chebbi, Morocco. Erg Chebbi is one of the most famous dune fields in the Moroccan Sahara. It's located near the town of Merzouga in the southeastern Morocco area, close to the Algerian border. It covers roughly 28 kilometers from north to south and about 7 kilometers across. Erg Chebbi features some of the tallest sand dunes in North Africa, with peaks rising over 150 meters. Unlike many of these huge uninhabited sand seas in the Sahara, Erg Chebbi's accessibility and beauty have made it a defining landmark of Morocco's desert. The dunes of Erg Chebbi are crescentic and star-shaped, shaped by winds blowing from multiple directions, and the fine texture of the sand and orange-red coloration create a visual contrast, especially during sunrise and sunset. Geologically, though, the sand originates from ancient river deposits in the Ziz Valley and surrounding basins. Over thousands of years, the wind action transported and sorted the sediments, forming these towering dunes seen today. The climate here is arid, of course, with the extremely hot summers where daytime temperatures often exceed 45 degrees Celsius, and mild winters with occasional cold nights. Rainfall is rare and irregular, averaging less than 100 millimeters a year, but flash floods can happen during brief storms, temporarily filling low-lying basins. Erg Chebbi holds cultural significance for the nomadic and semi-nomadic communities of the region, including the Amazigh, the Berber people. Traditionally, these groups have herded camels and goats, relying on desert oases for water and seasonal grazing. The dunes also hold a place in local folklore. Some legends describe them as a divine punishment that buried an ancient village beneath the sands. Today, though, Erg Chebbi is a major destination for tourism in Morocco. The towns nearby serve as the gateway, providing accommodations and guiding services for travelers seeking to experience the dunes' vastness and tranquility. Erg Chebbi's relatively compact size compared to other dunes does not diminish the experience. Its towering dunes, vibrant colors, and cultural connections make it one of the most recognizable and photogenic dune fields in the world. It's a microcosm of the Greater Sahara. It provides insight into desert geomorphology and the enduring allure of sand seas across humanity. Number 9. Rigagen, Iran. The Rigagen, often referred to as the Dune of the Jinn, is a huge and remote sand dune field located in the central Dasht-i-Kavir Desert of Iran. Spanning an area roughly 3,800 square kilometers, this region is one of the most inhospitable parts of the Iranian plateau. Known for its harsh conditions and labyrinth of high dunes interspersed with salt flats, this area has long carried a reputation for danger. The name Rigagen translates roughly to the Dune of the Spirits or the Dune of the Jinn in Persian. It reflects superstitions held by the desert travelers. Historically, caravans and nomads here avoided the area due to the terrain and lack of water. Accounts from earlier centuries describe Rigagen as a cursed place where travelers would vanish, though in reality the hazard stems from quicksand like salt marshes and extreme remoteness rather than supernatural forces. The dunes here are primarily star and longitudinal types, shaped by multi-directional wind patterns. Heights can vary, but many exceed 100 meters, creating towering ridges and sharp crests. The surrounding salt pans too are treacherous, with surfaces that appear solid but conceal water-saturated clay beneath, posing risks to humans and vehicles. Of course, the climate here is hyper-arid, with summer temperatures exceeding 50 degrees Celsius and winter nights dropping below freezing. Annual precipitation is minimal, often less than 100 mils a year, but water sources are virtually absent within the dune field itself. Despite the barrenness, though, wildlife like sand foxes, gerbils, and maybe the occasional muad'Dib and migratory birds occasionally pass through the margins of Rigagen. In the early 20th century, Swedish explorer Sven Hedin famously bypassed the region, citing its reputed dangers. Modern expeditions, often using off-road vehicles and satellite navigation, have mapped portions of the dune field and documented its geomorphology. The combination of high dunes, salt crust, and remoteness makes it a valuable site for studying desert process in extreme environments. The surrounding Deshta Kavir is home to several protected areas, but Rigagen itself remains largely undeveloped, contributing to its reputation as one of Iran's last true wildernesses. Number 8. The Barchan Dunes in China. The Barchan Dunes of the Turpan Depression in northwestern China form one of the most distinctive dune fields. Located in the Turpan Basin, one of the lowest and hottest places in China, these crescent-shaped dunes rise from the desert amid a landscape of salt flats and rugged mountains. Now, the depression itself is about 154 meters below sea level, making it the second lowest exposed point on the Earth after the Dead Sea, and this extreme geography contributes to the formation of these remarkable dunes. The dunes are primarily Barchan in type, meaning they are crescent-shaped with tips pointing downward, and this form is created by strong, consistent winds that blow predominantly from a single direction. In the Turpan region, prevailing winds sweep from the west and northwest, funneling through mountain passes and accelerating over the open basin. The heights of these dunes vary, with many rising between 30 to 60 meters, though some larger examples do exceed 100 meters. Their striking golden color is amazing with the surrounding bare rock and salt pans, particularly at sunrise and sunset, with low-angle light deepens the hues. The dunes are dynamic, constantly shifting in response to the wind, yet they maintain their general crescent form. The climate here is extremely arid, with scorching summer temperatures that can exceed 45 degrees Celsius and winter lows that plunge below freezing. Annual rainfall is pretty minimal, often less than 20 millimeters a year, but the region benefits from underground water sourced from nearby mountains. The ancient irrigation channels known as carrés, an ingenious system developed over 2,000 years ago, tap into that groundwater, supporting agriculture amid the desert. Historically, the depression lay along the routes of the ancient Silk Road, serving as a vital corridor linking China with Central Asia and the Middle East. The dunes surrounding the desert formed a barrier for the caravans, but nearby oases provided critical resting points for traders transporting silk, spices, and other goods. Today, though, they're a draw for both geologists and tourists. Scientists study them to understand dune migration, while travelers visit to experience their beauty and proximity to other attractions, like the Flaming Mountains and the ancient city ruins of Gaochang. Efforts to promote sustainable tourism are focused on limiting off-road vehicle use, which can damage these fragile dune surfaces and disrupt the natural environment. Moving on to number 7, the Khongoryn Els in Mongolia. The Khongoryn Els, often referred to as the Singing Sands, is one of the largest and most striking dune systems in the Gobi Desert of Mongolia. Stretching for about 180 kilometers and up to 27 kilometers in width, these dunes dominate the southern portion of the Gobi. They are among the tallest dunes in Asia, with some peaks rising between 100 to 300 meters, and they're known for their dramatic appearance and unique acoustic phenomena. The dunes here are shaped by the complex wind patterns in the Gobi Desert. They are primarily linear and star-shaped. Their regions experiences strong seasonal winds from multiple directions, which contributes to these steep slopes and the sharp ridges that characterize the Khongoryn Els. The sand's composed of fine quartz grains, which allow it to shift readily under wind pressure while also producing the distinctive singing or booming sound when large volumes of sand will slide down the slopes. This low-frequency hum caused by friction resonance between the sand grains can be heard from considerable distances and has long been part of the local folklore. Summers here in the Gobi can reach highs of 40 degrees Celsius, while winters can go negative 30 degrees Celsius. Precipitation is minimal, less than 100 millimeters annually, yet the region is unusual in that it lies adjacent to a river, a rare water course in the Gobi. This river originates from underground sources in the nearby mountains, and it supports a ribbon of greenery along the base of the dunes. Nomadic families in the region, primarily ethnic Khalkha Mongols, have traditionally grazed livestock like camels, goats, and sheep near here, and the dunes themselves hold cultural significance for them. Appearing in Mongolian oral histories and songs, local communities view the dunes as landmarks in the vast expanse of the Gobi. Visitors come here to hike or ride the camels across the dunes, listen to the booming sands, and experience the expansive views from the crests. To climb to the top of one of the highest dunes is pretty challenging due to the steep slope, but the panoramic view makes it worth it. From a scientific perspective, these dunes offer insight into the dynamics of the role of variable wind patterns in shaping these sand formations. Conservation efforts focus on balancing tourism growth with the desert, ensuring that off-road travel and overgrazing don't degrade the dunes or surrounding habitats. Number 6. The Rub al-Khali Dunes in the Arabian Peninsula. The Rub al-Khali, or Empty Quarter, is one of the largest continuous sand deserts in the world, covering about 650,000 square kilometers. Within this expanse lie some of the tallest dunes on Earth, with certain megadunes exceeding 300 meters in height and stretching for kilometers. These immense dunes represent one of the most extreme and least hospitable environments on the planet. Now, these dunes are predominantly linear, including immense star dunes with radiating arms and long seif dunes that can run unbroken for 200 kilometers. Geologically, this sand originates from the river and delta sediments deposited millions of years ago during wetter climatic periods. Over time, the wind action has concentrated and sorted these sediments into fine, silica-rich grains, giving the dunes their uniform golden-red coloration. Despite its harshness, though, the Rub al-Khali holds cultural significance. It's long been part of the nomadic range of Bedouin tribes, whose survival depends on deep knowledge of sparse water sources. The desert's associated with the legendary lost city of Ubar, or Iram of the Pillars, mentioned in both Arabian folklore and the Quran. Archaeological studies suggest that trade routes for frankincense once crossed parts of the Empty Quarter, linking southern Arabia with the Levant and Mesopotamia. Modern exploration began in earnest in the 20th century, most famously with the journeys of British explorer Bertram Thomas and later Wilfred Thesiger, whose writings vividly describe the hardships of crossing the desert on camelback. From a scientific standpoint, the Rub al-Khali provides a valuable insight into dune dynamics, sediment transport, and paleoclimate. Conservation concerns include protecting the unique desert ecosystem here and the cultural heritage sites while maintaining the impacts of any resource extraction. The dunes here remain among the planet's most amazing natural formations, a huge shifting sea of sand that continues to challenge scientists, explorers, and adventurers drawn to its scale and remoteness. Number 5. The Great Sand Sea Dunes of Egypt and Libya. The Great Sand Sea. It's an immense area spanning parts of western Egypt and eastern Libya, covering roughly 72,000 square kilometers within the Sahara Desert. Some of the dunes here rise over 140 meters in height and extend for several kilometers. The region represents one of the most continuous and visually striking sand seas in North Africa. Now, the dunes here are predominantly longitudinal, long, parallel ridges aligned with prevailing wind patterns, but star dunes do also happen where winds converge. And the wind-blown sand that forms these dunes originates from eroded sandstone formations and paleo lake beds, transported and reshaped by the strong wind here. Climatically, it's hyper-arid, of course. Annual rainfall is negligible, often less than 5 millimeters, and temperatures can soar above 45 Celsius during the summer months. Water exists only in deep aquifers, making the region one of the harshest on Earth for both humans and wildlife. Vegetation is almost absent within the core dune fields, though hardy shrubs and salt-tolerant plants can be found in interdunal depressions. But despite the extreme conditions, it has an archaeological history. Prehistoric rock art, stone tools, and pottery fragments found along the desert edges indicate that this region once supported human habitation during wetter climates. These artifacts suggest a landscape of seasonal lakes and grasslands that gave way to the advancing sands as the climate shifted towards aridity. Modern exploration of the Great Sand Sea remains challenging due to the lack of infrastructure. Expeditions require planning with specialized vehicles, GPS navigation, and water and fuel reserves. Tourism is limited but growing, particularly from Egyptian oases like Siwa, where guided trips venture into the eastern fringes of the dunes. But the Great Sand Sea exemplifies the scale of the Sahara Desert landscape. The towering dunes formed by millennia of wind are visually spectacular and scientifically valuable. As one of the largest contiguous dune fields on the planet, it's a defining feature of the Sahara and a frontier for both exploration and research. Number 4. The Lençóis Maranhenses Dunes. Lençóis Maranhenses National Park in northeastern Brazil. It's one of the most unique dune systems in the world, notable for the combination of huge white sand dunes and seasonal freshwater lagoons. Covering an area of about 1,500 square kilometers, this landscape resembles a giant bed sheet of sand. The name Lençóis means sheets in Portuguese and stretches along the Brazilian Atlantic coast. Now, unlike major dune fields, this one receives abundant rainfall during the wet season, averaging over 1,200 millimeters annually between January and June. The resulting landscape, sweeping white dunes interspersed with turquoise lagoons, is among the most striking desert environments on the planet, despite technically not being a desert. The dunes themselves are primarily crescentic or Barchan in shape. They can reach heights of 40 to 50 meters with ridges extending for several kilometers. Those seasonal lagoons become critical habitats for fish and migratory birds. Remarkably, fish species like the wolffish survive in the dry season by burrowing into the wet sand and entering a state of dormancy until the rains return. But human activity here has historically been limited due to the environment. Small communities of traditional fishermen live along the park's periphery, relying on seasonal fishing and subsistence farming. Access to the interior is restricted to authorized tours, and this place became a national park in 1981, which should ensure protection of this unique ecosystem. Visitor numbers rise significantly during the wet season, that's June to September, when the lagoons are at their fullest and most photogenic. This whole area serves as a natural laboratory for studying how the dune systems respond to seasonal water influx, particularly in the context of global climate variability. Lençóis Maranhenses stands apart from other great dune systems, not for its height or aridity, but for the remarkable seasonal transformation. The contrast between the bone-white sand and vivid blue-green lagoons creates one of the world's most surreal landscapes. Number 3. The Kalahari Dunefield of Southern Africa. The Kalahari Dunefield. It's one of the largest continuous expanses of sands in the world, spanning parts of Botswana, Namibia, and South Africa. It covers approximately 930,000 square kilometers. It's part of the greater Kalahari Basin. Unlike coastal dune systems like Namib Desert, the Kalahari's dunes are largely stabilized by vegetation, creating a semi-arid landscape that blurs the line between desert and savanna. The dunes of the Kalahari are predominantly linear and arranged in parallel ridges, some extending for hundreds of kilometers. Average heights range from 10 to 30 meters, though certain ridges can rise over 60. Now, geologically, the sand is ancient, derived from weathered rock formations in southern Africa and transported by the wind during past climatic cycles. Despite the sandy terrain, though, the Kalahari is not a true desert. It does receive seasonal rainfall ranging from 100 to 500 millimeters annually, concentrated during the summer months. The moisture supports an array of plant life, including acacias, camel thorn trees, and some hardy grasses, which in turn sustain a rich assemblage of wildlife. Human habitation of the Kalahari dates back tens of thousands of years. The San, or the Bushman people, are among the oldest continuous cultures in the world, and they've traditionally lived as hunter-gatherers in this landscape. Their survival strategies include tracking wildlife, harvesting tubers and melons for water, and navigating these huge dune corridors using oral maps and star patterns. From an ecological standpoint, the dunes here play a crucial role in groundwater recharge and habitat connectivity. Seasonal pans, those are shallow depressions that fill with water after rain, provide critical resources for the wildlife and livestock here. But in modern times, large portions of it are protected within reserves like the Central Kalahari Game Reserve in Botswana and the Kalahari Transfrontier Park straddling South Africa and Botswana. Tourism, particularly safaris and cultural tours, provide economic opportunities too, while raising awareness of the Kalahari's significance. The dune field here exemplifies how vast sand formations can exist in these semi-arid rather than purely desert climates. The scale of it, combined with the ecological and cultural importance, makes it one of the world's most remarkable dune systems. It's a living landscape shaped by wind, time, and human history. Number 2. The Taklamakan Desert Dunes in China. The Taklamakan Desert, located in China's Uyghur Autonomous Region, it's one of the largest sand deserts in the world. It covers roughly 373,000 square kilometers. It is the second largest shifting sand desert on Earth after the Rub' Khali. The name Taklamakan often translates to place of no return, reflecting the perilous conditions that historically deterred travelers here. Some of the tallest dunes here reach over 200 to 300 meters in certain areas. Now, the whole area is in the central Tarim Basin and bordered by the Tian Shan Mountains to the north and the Kunlun Mountains to the south. Strong prevailing winds have shaped the sediments into these immense dune fields, predominantly linear and crescentic in form, which dominate nearly 85% of the surface. The climate is of course arid, with annual rainfall averaging less than 50 millimeters per year and summer temperatures frequently exceeding 40 degrees Celsius. Winters, though, are bitterly cold, with temperatures going down as low as -20. Only ephemeral streams from melting mountain snow briefly penetrate the desert margins, which feed the isolated oases. And despite the conditions, though, the desert here played a crucial role in the history of the Silk Road. Ancient trade routes skirted the desert's edges, connecting China with Central Asia and beyond. Several oasis towns, including Hotan, Nia, and Khotan, flourished along these routes, relying on meltwater from the mountains to sustain agriculture and trade. Ecologically speaking, the Taklamakan supports sparse but unique vegetation adapted to the shifting sands. Euphrates poplar groves and a tamarisk shrub stabilize the dunes near the riverbeds, and they provide habitat for desert wildlife like jerboas, foxes, and some migratory birds. The systems here are increasingly threatened by human activity, including oil and gas exploration and water diversion projects that will reduce river flows into the desert. In modern times, the desert here has become a focus for both science and engineering projects. China's built highways crossing the desert, including the Tarim Desert Highway, which goes about 550 kilometers and is lined with protective vegetation belts. These projects provide some access to oil fields and remote communities, while also enabling the study of the desert's geology and ecology. Winds continually reshape the landscape here, creating ever-shifting patterns of ridges and valleys. This constant movement, combined with the desert's scale and isolation, reinforce its reputation as one of the most amazing and challenging sand dune systems in the world. Number 1. The Simpson Dune Fields in Central Australia. The Simpson and Strzelecki Dune Fields of Central Australia collectively form one of the largest and most continuous sand dune systems in the world, covering huge portions of South Australia, Queensland, and the Northern Territory. The Simpson Desert, the more famous of the two, spans about 176,000 square kilometers, and it's dominated by long, parallel linear dunes. These dunes are the longest in the world, with some ridges extending more than 200 kilometers in an unbroken line. Heights do vary from 20 to 40 meters on average, though certain dunes in the western Simpson can reach over 80 meters. The Strzelecki Desert, covering about 80,000 square kilometers, contains similar parallel dunes interspersed with gibber plains, those are stony deserts, and salt lakes, forming a distinct yet continuous landscape. During wetter periods in Australia's prehistoric past, rivers and lakes deposited huge amounts of sediment across the interior basins, and as the climate gradually dried out, wind action reworked the sediments into extensive dune systems. Today, prevailing easterly and southeasterly winds continue to shape and maintain the dunes. One of the most striking characteristics of the dunes here is the orientation of them. The linear dunes run roughly north to south, aligned with the dominant wind patterns. This uniform spacing and parallel structure create a corrugated landscape visible from above. This pattern particularly is evident along the famed French Line and the QAA Line tracks, popular with off-road adventurers who travel the desert during cooler months. Temperatures are extreme here, frequently exceeding 40 degrees Celsius in summer and dropping near freezing during winter. Spinifex grasses dominate the dune crests, which stabilize the sand and provide a habitat for insects and reptiles. Wildlife includes the iconic Australian species like red kangaroos, dingoes, and emus, as well as home to specialized desert dwellers like the thorny devil lizard. It's also home to migratory bird species that exploit the ephemeral lakes and water holes after rare rain. These biological communities are pretty fragile and highly responsive to climatic variability, making them important indicators of environmental change in Australia's arid zones. European exploration of the dunes began in the mid-19th century, with expeditions by Charles Sturt and later Augustus Puppel, whose 1880s survey established key boundary markers like the Puppel Corner, where South Australia, Queensland, and the Northern Territory meet. These early explorers struggled with the aridity and lack of surface water, challenges that continue to define travel in the region today. Modern crossings of the Simpson Desert, often by four-wheel drive vehicles, are a hallmark of the Australian outback adventure. Tracks like the French Line, Rig Road, and QAA Line traverse the desert from east to west, requiring careful preparation and self-sufficiency. The Strzelecki Desert is similarly remote, with limited access routes following historic stock routes and gas pipeline roads. Conservation efforts aim to balance the growing popularity of desert tourism with the need to protect the fragile ecosystem and cultural heritage here. Off-road driving, while central to the region's appeal, can damage vegetation. Traditional owner groups are increasingly involved in land management, integrating indigenous knowledge with modern conservation. The Simpson and Strzelecki Dunefield stand as one of Earth's most extraordinary sand landscapes,